Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Mastering the Drop, a real view of recovery. And I have to say that I am in a different type of recovery space this morning as we step into our conversation and our topic for the day. I'm in a space of recovery after a very invigorating, inspiring, and purposeful weekend filled with being with hundreds of people in recovery, but also people that are in service to people in recovery. So I was in the presence of therapists, treatment facilities, doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, educators, and we were all there together to ensure that we were staying at the top of our game in our delivery to services for society, regardless of what level of severity of addiction you may be struggling with, right? Because there are different levels of severity, from the high severity where we need to actually be removed from our environment and helped at a much deeper level, but to those levels of severity where we're just having problems in our relationship with alcohol. We don't, it's not derailing our life, but it could be alcohol, it could be food, it could be people pleasing or overbooking your calendar. But that's a level of severity that might be considered low severity, but still needing of service anyway. So I was with all of these folks. And so today I'm in a recovery space from that, right? Like that come down space, which has made it super important for me to focus right on our topic for today. And I thought, wow, how amazing and uncanny that we're talking about treat yourself and others better. And it, my very first thing I did was look at, how do I need to treat myself today? And what do I need to do? But anyway, before that, it's nothing short of a miracle that my guest, Miss Jacqueline Wales, is here with me today, because she also is very in tune with giving to ourselves, giving of ourselves to others, and how that balance really has a special way that it needs to operate and function. Anyway, I'm going to let Miss Jacqueline Wales introduce herself so that she can tell you all of the wonderful things about herself before we dive in.
All right, Tricia, thank you so much. And I'm glad we're in recovery mode today, because I think every day is a recovery of some nature. So I'm all for that. So I'm Jacqueline Wales, and I am the author of The Fearless Factor and The Fearless Factor at Work. I have spent over 40 years understanding and exploring the issues that come with being fearful and what it does to you in terms of your behaviors, your thinking, and the quality of life that you create because of it. And so I'm all about helping individuals to overcome their fears, to understand how they can truly step into the fullness of who they are and really bring their full potential to the world. And recently I created an online program called Transformational Strategies for Success, which really does look at who are you, where do you want to go, and most importantly, what is it that's getting in the way? And that's all of that limited thinking, the negative stuff, the ways in which we criticize ourselves, the attitudes that we have, all of that stuff that is absolutely aligned with the fear, which primarily is an emotion, and one that has absolutely no validity because it's based on the stories we tell ourselves. And many of the ways in which we treat ourselves and don't treat ourselves is a result of that negative thinking and fearful thinking about what we think we are, or who we think we are, and what we think we're capable of. So I'm happy to be having this conversation today about how do we treat ourselves and how do you treat others? Because clearly the old adage of, how you treat yourself is how you treat other people is how you want to be treated is absolutely right on. So let's give that some airtime today.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Thank you. I mean, it's always just such a pleasure to just hear you even talk about the work that you do, even in your description of it. it's useful, it's beneficial, it's helpful, and it is so great. And you know, I think, you know, as I step into that space that says, you know, I'm in a, you know, I'm going to recover today from, you know, the last 3 days. That doesn't mean I'm going to sit down and do nothing, right? But I am going to treat myself with loving kindness. And it starts with, you know, a slower pace, right? More thought and more space into that space for thought before going into action. So, you know, just really allowing time to, you know, let that knee-jerk instant gratification pull to always be in motion, letting that go, right? Like we feel like we always have to be in motion. And so for me, you know, when I'm doing things like being productive, I feel just as productive being still and handwriting out a plan, right? Like just handwriting out anything that might be swirling around in my mind, jotting down a very detailed order of things that I need to go through and review, but also creating that list of things for follow-up. And I think for me, it's been a, you know, a really huge space of improving my, well, I'll call it self-esteem, but just my fulfilling my esteem needs, you know, really, you know, loving and appreciating myself and my ability to hear what my body is telling me, what my emotional space is telling me. And I say space because I've got my emotional mind and I've got my emotional body, and they work together. But they are separate for me. They may not be for everybody else, but they are for me. But, you know, being able to hear all of that and what it's telling me and what it needs, you know, I get to appreciate that. And in that, it allows me to go forward in thoughtful action, which is part of something that I've always, you know, wanted to have be part of my new lifestyle, right? This recovery lifestyle that I've created that says, how do I want to see myself, right? And that's right here, right now in this time and space. How do I want to see myself? How do I want to see myself experiencing living? How do I want to experience my environment? And how do I want my environment to receive me? And so it gives me that space to be able to do that.
And it's ultimately about what is the quality of the life that you wish to create. And that is, I think, what comes down to it. You know, if we are clear on what really matters to us in terms of our daily lives and the ways in which we take care of ourselves, you know, that's really what creates that quality of life that you can look upon and go, it's exactly where I need to be at any given time. And, you know, I also know from myself, you know, I can go off the rails for sure. You know, I can drink too much wine on occasions and I pay for it later. And then when I do that, I go, you don't want to do this very often, because, you know, every part of you it's wrong, because it just doesn't make any sense. And, you know, in my earlier years, I had a lot of problems with addictions to both alcohol and drugs. And I went into AA for 5 years thinking that I had a problem with drinking, until I discovered that it was really about the thinking, not about the drinking.
Yes.
And when I, you know, got clear on that and how to shift the thinking, then that became self-care. How do I take care of me? Because ultimately, when we learn how to love ourselves better, other people love us more. And that is a truism right there.
And it also affords us the ability to love others more effectively, right? Yeah. When we get out of that stance of a judger, it's what I refer to it as, and we can move into the stance of a learner, it allows for acceptance. It doesn't mean that we have to buy into other people's stance, belief, motives. And it doesn't mean we have to shift away from our integrity, our own, morals and ethical beliefs. It just means that we are able to accept and appreciate that each individual being on this planet has the same right that we do to their own thoughts, feelings, emotions, opinions, beliefs, needs, wants, dreams, desires. Sure, that doesn't mean we're going to get on board with the serial rapist or murderer, and try to accept him for what he is or she is or whatever. But so it's not that extreme, but seriously, right? Like we go through as beings, we go through life and will judge like this, right? Somebody may have heard you say, I sometimes drink too much, and I have this conversation, but then also say, I was in AA and I was recovered, and when I realized it was my thinking, right? There'll be people that may dispute that. We just spent a weekend of talking about to those rigid practitioners with those, old schoolers, right? Like there is a much broader way of recovering now that gets to look, feel, be however each and every one of us individuals need. It's not to be judged or defined by anybody other than yourself, so long as it's serving you and your quality of life is improving and you are, prospering in the direction that you need. It's not for anybody else to judge. It's for us to accept and to celebrate that you've at least, chose your journey, or that you're on one trying to figure it out.